First of all, thanks everyone for attending today. We're always excited to show features. What we're going to be looking at today is a brand new feature of FileHold 16.3, which is the long-awaited, long-asked-for FileHold viewer redaction feature. So we now have the ability to do redaction. Now, before I go into how that redaction works, I want to talk about the viewer, which is the engine that drives the which drives the redaction function. The FileHold Level 1 viewer is something that I think most of our users have, and what they do is they allow you to view documents, typically your standard image files, PDFs, docx Word files, TIFFs, JPEGs, as I say, PDFs. So your standard sort of image files that you might want to preview on the system. They also let you publish those documents. So if you're looking at something within FileHold like a Word file, you can publish it as a PDF. We also allow you to use that for searching. So if you want to look at documents and preview where you found particular word or phrase in, you can do that through a search. And you can also manipulate things, but images only. We can't do the manipulation on a docx, but we can do it with a PDF. So if something was misscanned and you need to rearrange the pages, you can always do that through there. The level 2 viewer is the next step up, and it's a more advanced license. And it's where it allows you to do things like mark up a document, to be able to put annotations or anything like that on it. You can do assembly, so you can put multiple documents together and batch them together into a new PDF. We can also do comments on it, so you can make notations as you need to. And it also has an expanded doc support. So for example, we can look at Excel documents using the level 2 viewer. The level 3 viewer, which is brand new to FileHold 16.3, allows us to do document redaction. So in order to use redaction, you must first of all have a level 2 viewer. In order to have a level 2 viewer, you need to have a level 1 viewer. But if you're a FileHold user, you've already got the level 1 viewer. So there's no worries there. Now, I'm not going to take us through a lot of activity with the level 1 viewer, the viewing documents, publishing them. I'm going to touch on some of those, especially when it comes to how we save those redaction levels. But I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about the level 2 viewer. So with that, let's take a dive into FileHold. But first, I just want to talk about the difference between annotating documents and publishing documents, which is an important distinction within the software. An annotation is a layer that we're putting on top of the document that allows you to do markups or annotations, and it's visible only when you're using the FileHold viewer. So it's not actually something that becomes public and shared outside of the system. Publishing a document either creates a new document or a new version of the document in which those annotations are baked into that PDF, so they're not removable. And this is really important when it comes to redaction, because we can redact a document while retaining that information on the document within the system, but when we pass it out, we can publish it as a new PDF that has that redaction built in. So with that, let's hop over to take a look at my system live. So I'm going to bring up my environment. So here we are over in FileHold. Those of you who know FileHold will know what you're seeing right now. This is our desktop application, and we've got a document down here. I've got my Hamlet that I've just downloaded, and I can open this up with the FileHold viewer. The viewer appears down here at the bottom. Now, when you load it up for the first time, it takes a second to bring open, and then it's got my document down here. We've got some thumbnails, and I can browse through this. So I can move from page to page there, or I can simply scroll up and down. Now, because like most things that are down here in FileHold, I can slide this up or down if I need to give myself more room, less room, or of course I can always undock it and take it to full screen. And if you've got a second monitor, even a better way, you can push the whole thing over onto the second screen and take a look through there. If I expand this side of the window too, I can give myself more than one thumbnail per page, so I can preview the document as I come through. So if I need to see something, I can see that on there. Now, this is a document that has a text layer that's been built into it. So when I run my mouse over top, I can select information that's available on screen. This is an important part. If I've got a pure image file, then I'm not going to be able to use redaction on it. We have other functions I can use, but when we're talking about redaction, we're talking about text. Now, before I take a dive into this too deeply, I want to start off by taking a look at just a couple of details. First of all, I was talking about the supported file types, and this is right off of our knowledge base. You can see that these are some of the different file types that are supported either by the level 1 viewer or the level 2 or 3 viewer. So we've got a full list of the different documents here and then what's supported. You'll see the level 1 viewer is somewhat limited. That's by design, so that we're supporting those major files that come into there. But if you have a need for more of those document types, you can absolutely take a look at this list. It's just available on our website. If you go to, if you type in up here in the knowledge base, if you type in viewer under search, you'll be able to find that really simply. So it'll bring you over to this viewers page and give you some more details if you want to take a deeper dive into that end. Okay, so before I actually take a look at the level 2 viewer, I want to first start with the level 1 viewer and kind of what that experience is of using a level 1. So I'm going to head over here. You can see I've got different web browsers, and what this is letting me do is kind of sign in with different identities. And my first identity over here where I'm signed in as Jennifer, we have a level 1 viewer access to this. So when I select my document and then open it up in the viewer, again, using the web client, and I have to reload because I've timed out, there's our security measures in place. So let's try that again. We're going to open this up in the FileHold viewer. The viewer now steps forward, it loads the document into place, and lets me take a look at this. Now you'll see that each of these modes has an edit and an annotations button. And when I click onto this, it's going to tell me that I can't do this because I'm only assigned a level 1 viewer. So if you're a level 1 viewer and you see that annotations button, you can click on it. It's just going to give you a warning saying that you can't use it because you need to be a level 2 viewer. So there's no problem there. But I can still preview this document. It's got my thumbnails like before. I do have the ability to add or delete pages. And then when I make those changes, I'd have to publish it as a new version. So any of those changes I make are kept within the viewer over here. So I can't actually save that moving forward. So that's our level 1 viewer. You can still preview the document. You have a more limited list of what you can preview, but still, a fair number of image files and your most common ones like JPEGs, TIFFs, PDFs, etc., docx files, etc., which you can preview onto this and have a look at. The level 2 viewer, and I'm going to step over here to a different browser, and let's just do a refresh proactively. So the level 2 viewer is what allows me to do some basic annotations and whatnot. So I can come into this and open this up in the viewer. And then once I'm in the viewer again, it steps forward. I can go into an annotation mode by clicking Edit Annotations, and it's going to expand my menu down here on the side. Now I'm going to show you more details about that later. But now that I'm in this mode, for example, I can select text onto this, and then I've got some options that I can execute. And again, I'm going to show you what those functions are in a moment. My level 3 viewer, on the other hand, which I'm going to access using the desktop application, has all the same functions as level 2. And in fact, when I go into edit over here, we get a different set of information. But now FileHold blocks me because the annotation mode is unavailable because the document is being annotated by Andy. So only one user can be annotating a document at a time. Multiple users can be viewing it, but only one can do the annotations. No problem. So I head back over to Andy's workstation over here. I turn the edit mode off. If I want to, I can close this. I'm actually not required to, but I'm just going to do that for cleanliness. And now that I've cleaned that up, I'm going to come back to over here, and when I click edit, it's going to allow me to go into the edit mode. So now I'm in the edit annotation mode. So just like before, I can grab text, and now when my mouse moves over top of it, and I right click, I've got some options that I can come up with over here. So for example, I can copy text just like what you'd expect, puts it onto your workstation's clipboard. We've got redaction. I'm going to come back to this obviously because it's the most important part of today, but this is how I can select text to redact. I can highlight, I can cross strike out, I can underline, I can erase, or I can put a comment onto it. Now the comment's what I want to show you quickly here. If I click on comment, I have the option to put a comment into this, and I could either type text or I could do an @ so I could say at Andy, and I start to type that in. It's going to suggest the user, so I can click on Andy's name, and now I can say, take a look at this, and then Andy's going to get an email notice saying Chris made a comment onto this. You might want to come over there and take a look at it. And I can publish that, and then it becomes part of that document moving forward. Now I'm publishing the comment, and then I can save that information onto the document. So we save our annotations as we're working through. And the objective behind this is to make sure that once I'm finished my work on this, once I've done any of my annotations, I can save them and somebody else can take a look at it. That's why it locks me out if someone else has the annotations editing open, to make sure that not more than one person isn't doing the same thing and accidentally overworking each other. We're protecting you from that from happening. In this case, I don't actually want to save this comment. I'm going to go ahead and just delete this and remove that from on there, and FileHold gives me a safety to ask me if I'm sure I want to do that. which I am. So now we're back again looking at our document, and we've got some windows over here that I wanted to show you. Our top one we've already seen. This is the thumbnails, and I can make this bigger or smaller if I want. If I want a bit more space for my document, I can do that. Our second one over here is search, and this is a way that I could actually jump into a search mode. And again, we're looking for text on our documents. We're not just doing a search for an image, obviously. So if I was to type in the word Hamlet and run that as a search on the play of Hamlet, you'll be shocked to learn I have lots and lots of matches. Now notice that it takes me through on the search. It gives me that nice green highlight with the red box around it, so I can jump from element to element and see all the different Hamlets on the page. In this case, there's 14 of them, and I can jump to the next page until I can identify the exact reference that I was looking for. So search function built into this, and again, we've got some filters on this, like whole word, case sensitive, any word, any of those values I can jump into. Now we also have our next mode over here, which is annotations. This is only available because I'm in an annotation mode. If I was to turn this off by clicking edit, and because I haven't any unsaved changes, I don't want to save any of them, so we're going to turn that mode off, that option disappears. I can only get to that when I enable my annotation mode. And now I can go into this, and we have some of our more fundamental annotation tools. So we've got, for example, highlighting or freehand highlighting. The highlighter in this case will put a box over top so you have a little bit more control over it. We've got a rubber stamp function. We can do basic drawings. We can put text on top of it, drop rulers, put sticky notes over top. So we have these sort of typical annotation functions you might expect to see. And like any other annotation, when I'm done with them, I can save that and bake them into this particular document using the viewer. Remember, this is only saving annotations. It's not publishing them for view. The only way to see the annotations I'm leaving over top is to use the FileHold viewer, because we're using this internally for right now. That's how this has been designed. Our next option over here is to go into comments, so I can I can make comments onto this. And again, this is a level 2 viewer function. So this is for people who have that to be able to pass notes to each other, highlight things, say, hey, there's an issue over here, just with using this within the viewer. And our last option down here is some customizable things. We have some stamps that we've built in. So for example, we can put something over top of it to say expunged if we wanted to. So there's some built-in stamps free for people to use who have the level 2 viewer. And it is possible to build custom stamps. If you need something, let us know. These ones have been created by us, but others are certainly possible. I'm going to get rid of that because I certainly don't want a giant expunged across my Hamlet. So we'll just remove that. All right, the other thing that we had before was, you saw when I had something highlighted, was we've got our options that can come up. And again, like before, I could do a strike through, which then places that over top. And then if I didn't want that anymore, I can clear it. So we've got that as a set of options. So those are the basic mechanics of the level 2 viewer when I'm using the viewer. Those are our functions that are available into there. Now there's also redaction, which is part of the level 3 viewer. I wanted to say before I move into that, there's also other aspects to this, such as the ability to do document assembly. So to take multiple documents together and put them into a single new PDF. You can do cover sheets with that. You can do watermarking. You can do merge tags, where you're pulling information from our metadata and applying them to the document. And it's a subject in and of itself. We're going to get to one of those in a webinar Wednesday, because I think it's an underutilized tool in the software. We want to make sure people can see that and feel comfortable with it. It's a great way to tag document, to amalgamate information together before you send it out. Imagine being able to put draft across 20 different documents, bind them together into a single PDF, and courier it off to somebody. So you've got that sort of deliverables built into it. So I don't want to minimize the assemble function. It's very powerful, but it's going to take longer than we have together. So what I want to look at now is some different ways that we can do our redaction. So I'm going to start off here. I'm actually going to close this because I don't need to have this open anymore. Now you'll notice that when I'm in this mode here, if I hit my X, it minimizes the viewer, but when I open up the viewer again, it's still there. That's because my document is open with the viewer over here. So I'm going to close that. Again, it's going to let me know that I've got unsaved annotations. Nope, I don't want to save them. So it's going to close out the document. It just wraps up with the viewer, and it's now freed up for somebody else to be able to annotate. And remember, anyone else can still view it even when I'm doing my annotations, but nobody else can do any further markups on it. All right, so now we're going to go in, we're going to reopen that document in the viewer, and we're going to look at our redaction. We're going to ignore this front image here because this actually isn't text. This is an image, and this document has not been OCR'd because it already has a text layer over top of it, so it didn't OCR over top. So we can feel free to ignore this first page. If I wanted to blot this out, I could easily turn on my annotations, and then I could go into my annotation tools. We could choose a box. We could choose what this looks like a squared box. We could fill it. We could choose a color for it. So in this case, we'll choose a fill color of black, and we'll add that, and then we could put a box over top of this and wipe out what's there. Because there's no text, I can simply black it out. This is an important distinction between redaction and blacking out. We're not just blacking out information, we're also removing that information from the text layer of the document after we've completed our redaction. So having done that to our first image up here, I'm going to scroll down, and now we're going to find a reference into here, and we're going to manually black something out. So let's roll down to page 4. If I wanted to, I could come over to my thumbnails. Here's page 4, and I could choose one of my references for Hamlet, highlight it, and then just ask to redact it. And now you'll see a black box over top there, but I can still see the text through it. This text has been redacted, but it's been redacted by the viewer, so therefore it's part of that annotation layer. So if I was to save this, it would then save that as part of the viewer, but it hasn't dealt anything yet with the versions of this document. It's simply what's been built in. So that's as simple as it takes to redact one thing, or I could, take an entire large set of information and hit redact, and it puts those same blocks over top of it. If I didn't want this, or it was a mistake, again, because we're doing this in the viewer layer, I could delete this. I could even save my changes to this and then come back later on if I wanted to and remove those redactions. It does this line by line when I select multiple lines. So I just need to hit this a couple of times. So again, if I've overrun, I don't have to undo everything that I've already done before. I can just choose the area that I made a small mistake on. Now that's one way to get into redaction. Another way is actually to use that same search tool that I had before. So we'll type in Hamlet and we'll do our search for that. We've got all our references for Hamlet. Let's undock that to make it bigger so we can see all of our points down here. Instead of right-clicking over here where it has it highlighted, I'm going to right-click on the thumbnails that it's given me, and now I'm going to ask it to do a redaction over that. It's going to immediately ask me if I want to apply this to the selected text only or to all of my search results. Let's apply it to all of my search results, say OK. And now that redaction layer will be put over top. You can see the spinning wheel over here as it's going through to make sure it's marked. And now I can jump through and I can see all of the black marks over top of Hamlet. So we've put that into place. So we know that page 6 should have lots and lots of black boxes over top. Now that I'm done this, I want to now publish this as a new document. So I'm not going to publish this as a new version of this. I'm going to publish this as a new document. I want to keep this version of it accessible to people in my system. Or I could publish this as a new version and hide the previous versions using my web config panel so that nobody else can see those current versions of it. So let's go ahead first of all and save this. So again, we get the spinning wheel. We've saved that. If we want to make sure that we've saved it, we'll see that our edit is grayed out and I can close that. So that removes me from that editing mode. And now if I wanted to, I can go back into that so we can see those annotations again. And now I can publish that. Now we can push this out. So I can make it a new version of this, or I can save this as a new document in FileHold. And let's choose that as an option. So we're going to make this a brand new document within the system. So it thinks to itself for a second. We're going to choose a location for this because I don't want to be fancy for this. We're going to put this in the same place I took it from. And I'm just going to make it a PDF, which for me is a kind of document, and we'll just make this a general document. So that's my schema. We're going to add this into the system. So now the viewer is going to think to itself for a moment, and it's going to generate our brand new document, which it's done up here. So we can see, and it's opened that up for me in the viewer. Now, because I had that black box over the top, that Hamlet is gone. And now when I scroll down, we're going to see the rest of our Hamlets. So, and there's our page 6 that I wanted to show you. Let's undock this again to make it bigger. Jump over to page 6. And there's our black boxes over top of Hamlet. Now what's important here is that there's no text underneath this for me to grab. If you see here where I've got my text mode, here I don't. If I come over to my search tool now and type in the word Hamlet and run that as a search, no results were found for the specified item. And that also includes within the FileHold search index. So even though this new document's been added in, it's now fully searchable. None of the text for that I've been looking for is gone. We're talking about true redaction here, not just putting the black boxes over top. You can't cheat this by removing the text layer. Because it's a PDF, we've baked this image into it. You can't remove this later on. There's no stripping this back. Even unlike up here, where maybe if I made a mistake when I put that black box over top and my colors weren't 100% correct, and somebody comes into this and they're able to lighten or process the document enough, this is not only a black box over top, but it's also text removed from that. So Hamlet is no longer part of the tragedy of Hamlet play that I've just added into the system. This is redaction in a nutshell. This is true redaction from a document, and the best part about it is that I can maintain that original. So if we step back over here, so I'm going to go back in another identity. We're now in as Andy. Andy's a level 2 viewer, so Andy has access to be able to, the viewer, and can see redaction if he wants to, but won't be able to employ redaction, but can at least see them. So now we're going to go into this. We're going to look at the metadata and file properties. So we're going to open up that panel, and we'll see that we've got a markup layer to this. Now this is why that's important. If I right-click on this document and just open it up in the viewer, it's going to preview the document for me, just like we had before, except we'll see that Hamlet is still here. Nothing that looks like nothing's been saved, and that's because it's a markup, and you need to be in that markup mode in order to see what someone else has done. There's our page 6 that's full of Hamlets, and they're still there with nothing over top of it. Let's close that, and this time, let's look at that document. So again, we're going to go back into those metadata and file properties, and let's take a look at that with our markup on. So I'm going to ask this to view it with the markup. So this is going to put us into that same mode as before as to who made the markup, and it's going to give me the warning saying it's being annotated by Chris. So I'm going to close that, so I won't be able to make any further changes to this, but now we're in that same mode that we saw before. So I can engage that. We can see through the redaction because I've not published it as that. It's just ready to be published with the redaction layer in place. So again, we haven't taken this document away from the team, we've taken it away from when we're sending it out to somebody else. And that's what I wanted to show you about redaction today. David, have we had any questions that have come in since I have been doing my presentation?
Yes, we have just a few questions, not too many, but if there are any additional questions, just keep typing in our chat window and we'll respond to everything. The first question we have here for you, Chris, is what do I need to do to upgrade from a level 1 to a level 2 or 3 viewer?
You would contact your salesperson. The level 2 viewers are an optional feature, so the level 1 viewer is standard. There's a cost for the level 2 viewer. I'm not sure what they are offhand, and you can contact your sales representative and they can give you the information for your pricing.
Perfect. And you just actually answered the second question. Was somebody asked how much would it cost for the level 3 viewer?
It depends on what you have for licensing right now. So I can't give a blanket answer to that.
Yeah, fair enough. And looks like that's it for the questions then, Chris.
Okay.
So we can wrap things up. Not too much to be asked. If you do have any other further questions, just send an email to sales@filehold.com and we'll get back to you with that info. Otherwise, on the screen there, you see there are plenty other upcoming webinars that we're going to be hosting. So if you want to register for any of those, please do. Oh, hold on. I think I see a last minute question here.
Perfect.
Chris.
Well, while you're prepping that, I just want to mention our next webinar for the information webinar Wednesdays on the 25th. On the 18th, another great demo with Kevin, who's going to be showing us, a lot of the overview of FileHold's functions. But I'm going to be starting a series of these. We're going to do a month of workflows. We're going to do 4 sessions on workflow. Anyone's had ever any questions about workflow, how it functions, how it works, how to build them, how to optimize them, tips and tricks. We're going to be doing lots of them. They're going to be a little bit longer than this one. We're going to do a full 45 minutes, and we're going to do a full exploration. Next one will just be an intro, and I'm really going to encourage people to come and see that. Workflow is an incredibly powerful function, and I want to make sure people take advantage of it. David, we had a question.
We do. Actually, we got 2 more questions.
Ooh, even better.
That came in under the wire. So here they are. First of all, we are looking at controlling data by forcing users to open a document only in FileHold. Can you give a brief overview on that?
Absolutely. So there's a couple of different options that you have. One of them is that, and why not? I'm just going to step back to over here. I'm going to go into my administration menu. So we're going to come up. You can see I'm logged in as my sysadmin account. So this is something that I have access to. Within the FileHold groups, so we're going to go into our library, system management, user management, and groups. One of the functions that we have for our different groups, such as our document publisher group over here, is we can control their ability to download the document and only be able to use the viewer. So at the viewer level, or at the user level, I'm able to say that I'm not going to allow them to download the document. They can't print it. They can't email it. And that way, the only way that they can access the document is to use the viewer for it within FileHold, and it keeps their access away at this level. Now, if I need them to have more of an administrative role, I'm going to be giving them access to download the documents because that becomes inherent. But it's very easy to control for read-only users or for document publishers. I'll also mention that if you're going to be sharing your documents via a URL, such as using the link function, if you're curious what that looks like, if I go in and I take a look at any of my documents, and I can see that there's a link to these. So if I open up my URLs, I can link them to the viewer or the FDA, or I can even link them to my portal viewer, which will allow me to open that document using the portal mode, and it'll automatically open the document with the viewer just by clicking that link. So there's another way to do it that way.
Okay, and there was a second part to that question, but I think you answered most of it anyways. He also added, we don't want them to print, export, or email them, basically.
Yep, restrictions.
Yeah.
They're your
Yeah,
friend.
exactly. All right, looking here. And then the other question that we had is, yes, we will have a recording of today's public webinar, and we will email that to everybody once it's done. You'll probably get that probably about 3 hours after today's webinar. So just quickly going through everything, and it looks like we've covered everything. So I think we can now officially wrap up, Chris. So thank you everybody for attending today's webinar.
Thank you so much, everyone. Looking forward to seeing you again.